We watched a young eagle feast on a moose carcass in the shallows of a lake. We fended off an aggressive grouse.
Just let the
We
gnat
ogled
sound
the
take you in
peculiar
for a moment.
abundance of butterflies. On past trips, I've spotted moose and mink and otter. One time, Chris and I heard a pack of wolves
like you're
howling
there.
from across a lake. I've canoed past a snapping turtle the size of a car tire. Another time, past a pair of trumpeter swans swimming protectively alongside their two cygnets.
And that is an a-hole revisited. I just had to play that again because it's the onslaught of gnat sound, and that is wholly offensive and should be upsetting to God himself. How are you, Alice?
I'm great.
You are looking hot these days. You really are. You really are.
Thanks, honey. That's nice to hear.
My
I
pleasure.
appreciate that.
My
So are
pleasure.
you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Really, you look great, Alice. We
Thank
should
you.
use this. Oh, we got to make our Mother Road shirts.
Okay. You want
Very
Road
soon.
66?
Yes, and I want your very hot, curvaceous little body in them, modeling them. Okay?
We'll see.
No, we'll see, Alice.
Okay.
I made purchase of you many years ago, and it includes all this physicality and your youthful curves.
Okay, honey.
All right.
So today was Inflation Day.
That's right. There was at 3 primary dinner. Of course, it couldn't happen at 11, 12, 1, or 2, and I could have used it for my show. But they had the bash for the Biden Inflation Reduction Act
So,
today.
and they obviously had this today because they were expecting the inflation numbers would be better and that they could take a victory lap about how they had solved inflation.
Right.
Because July's inflation numbers were sort of, well, it was month over month at 0. So it was like prices stayed the same, which was still an 8.5% increase over the previous year. But they were calling it a reduction because the prices were, the rate of increase went down, basically. So anyway, they were calling it a reduction, right? And so then the August inflation numbers came out today, so they decided to throw themselves a party for what a great job they did solving inflation. And of course, the inflation numbers were way worse than expectations, even with falling gas prices. The month-over-month inflation was positive, and it was expected to be negative, and food prices were up the most since 1979.
Right.
Rent was up the most since 1986, and the housing costs haven't even fully hit yet because there's a delay in those. Electricity up 15%, the largest since 1981. I'm sorry. Health insurance up 24%, the largest ever increase in health
incredible.
insurance costs. So all these things, despite the fact that gas has fallen because they've completely depleted our strategic petroleum reserves, which are supposed to be like in case we have a war and we need petroleum. They've like completely dumped a bunch of that into the economy to mitigate the gas prices, which seems to have been moderately effective temporarily. And we're going to now have to replenish them, which will drive the gas prices back up. And also economists are saying that with the uncertainty still with Putin and Ukraine, like the gas prices could go up again this winter and probably will. So this is a problem. It means that the Fed is going to hike rates more than people expected. It means that Wall Street had a panic attack today and sold off stocks like crazy. It was like a 4%.
It was down 1,300 at one point.
Yeah, it was a 4% decrease. So in percent, it wasn't the biggest day ever, but it's like in points, it's like in the top 10.
Economically disastrous day. All indicators disastrous.
Yeah.
And so they have this bash planned now.
What
you
a
would think
screw
they-
up!
they-
What
well,
a
hold
screw
on.
up
I
that
mean,
they
you could
planned
think-
this.
There's a couple ways to go on this. One, you try to pull the nerviest gaslighting that you can possibly pull off and actually have a celebration. The people, elected leaders in Washington, D.C. can have a celebration. Or two, you scrap the party and say you've got work to do for the American people as we go into the election, and you're going to look at ways and take ideas from outside if you meant to do something and if you had a clue. But there is no clue to be had here. So this Walking Dead comes out there with his stupid aviator sunglasses and begins the celebration.
This couldn't have happened without every single one of you, and that's in the literal sense in the Senate. Every single one was required.
I don't think that they want to hear him say that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, don't remind people that we voted for that, please.
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act party comes on a day where inflation is increasing. It is terrible. Terrible. Some of the, you mentioned the food costs, some food costs up 13%, some are up 24%. Cost for wholesalers is through the roof. Restaurants are spending a bleep load of money, and you can just see it when you go to restaurants. You can see that things are different. Not only are they understaffed, which is wonderful that happened, but they've pared down food. Things are smaller. It's shrinkflation, all that stuff. But so they decided that since there's an election coming up, they're going to pretend. Now we're in full pretend mode. Pretend that everything's fine, and they had a celebration, and they said, everybody keep clapping.
Because the other team didn't want to play. And all our distinguished guests, CEOs, advocates, activists, thank you for joining us. And what a great day. Exactly 4 weeks ago today, I signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law.
This is not something, this is like, if you remember the 2003 Red Sox season, Grady Little can't give a speech after the Sox cough up the ALCS and tout how great the season was. It's not a celebratory day. This is an economic day of mourning. This is not, you can't really do this.
Yeah, I just looked it up. This was the worst day for Wall Street since June of 2020. So in the middle of the pandemic crash, essentially. We're back to that now. Without a pandemic happening anymore. So there's no excuse for this. It's just, this is the biggest screw up. And the fact that they went ahead with the party celebrating how they reduced inflation.
So listen to Fox's coverage of this. Listen to Fox's coverage of this.
Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices.
All right, I do not want to be a party crasher, but we interrupt this celebration for a hard, cold dose of reality. Stocks tanking because inflation is accelerating. The very inflation that the president said he's made great progress addressing, heralding his Inflation Reduction Act as the boon for the economy that we didn't see in a key number out earlier today. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto. And Fox on top of a sell-off, the likes of which we've not seen in quite some time. In percentage terms, the roughly 4% hit in the Dow is the worst we've seen in 2 years. Ditto the S&P 500. And again, the NASDAQ. All hit and hit hard because inflation remains stuck and no one can get it under control. An 8.3% annualized inflation rate in the latest month. The core rate, that is without food and energy, also soaring more than 6.3%. This is the fourth 1,000-point sell-off for the Dow just this year.
And this wasn't just Fox, though, too.
Right.
Did you see the CNN clip? I sent us the CNN clip also. If you look in there, they also had to interrupt the Biden party to give people the bad news.
I'll play it in a second. I just want to hit this Biden thing. I'll play it in a second.
Okay.
It's been good for the country. But I believe Republicans could have and should have joined us on this bill as well. After all, this bill cut costs for families, help reduce inflation at the kitchen table, because that's what they look at, how much are their monthly bills and how much.
That's a ballsy thing to say.
Yeah, that's a tough one to come out with on the day when the inflation numbers come out.
Help reduce inflation at the kitchen table. No, Jean-Pierre has those talking points too. That's precisely where it has not helped. Stuff at the kitchen table.
What happened to like the party of science and stick with the fact? And
hey, if they can get the media to comply with him.
No, you're not feeling any inflation. You don't feel it at your kitchen table. I don't care what the economists say. Your kitchen table is just fine, doing great.
Wow, and also the fact that his mind is gone is not great.
Think about what you'd think about at the time. Think about how you'd feel if you didn't have the insurance and didn't have the money. It's wrong. It's not who we are, and we're going to
think about what you think about if some jackass just spent more money on an Inflation Reduction Act, which is a climate change act, which just flushes more money down the drain the government doesn't have, which is going to have to recoup from the very same people whose dollar is going hardly anywhere anymore.
Who's funding the
What a-
Inflation
it's
Reduction
just
Act
like, what a
4-week
contain-
anniversary party, by the way, too?
Exactly, including James effing Taylor, which is
Who doesn't show up at Inflation Reduction Act parties for free, I assume.
right. That's correct. We paid for him. Oh man. Okay, let me get to our cuts.
So yeah, I mean, this was such an embarrassment and such a misstep. Like, I don't even see how any even semi-self-respecting journalists can cover this with anything less than skepticism, because it's so transparently just a political move, and they so clearly thought they were going to have good inflation numbers to talk about today. That
What makes them toxic, though, Alice, is that they didn't scrub it. They said, no, let's tell them anyway. Let's celebrate anyway. Here's CNN.
So I thank the Republicans who stood up.
Okay, you're listening there to President Biden at the White House. He's celebrating the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. He says that he's been fighting Big Pharma for decades. But there is this unfortunate split screen right now with the Dow taking a total beating, down more than 1,200 points. And so it feels like it's hard to be celebratory for some people in the crowd.
Yeah. Ooh, the new owners may like her.
There's an unfortunate split screen. Sorry about the unfortunate split screen on the president.
Meanwhile, we're getting, Nantucket's own James Taylor during this party. They bring in the musician who's preaching to people.
This is a time when the world needs to cooperate more than ever before. Perhaps more than anything since the Second World War. The world needs to get together and respond to the climate crisis. And I think that
are those people clapping? And is James Taylor? Are they living the typical experience of Americans right now?
I would say not. No.
It's effing unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Here's Corinne Jean-Pierre.
This month, we saw some welcome moderation in the price increases for food at the grocery store. It's moderating, which is important.
It's moderating, except that it's not moderating.
Yeah, no, except it's historically the biggest increase at the grocery store since the 70s. So, I mean, this might work on, like, Biden and his friends who don't have to go to the grocery store. But, like, for most of us who do go to the grocery store, it doesn't, they don't believe her because we're all at the grocery store and we can see what the prices are. But there are people, and this boggles my mind too, because people say this to me, they're like, but the people who live around us, some of their like liberal friends and neighbors, just talk about what a great job Biden's doing and all this stuff and how everything's, going so much better now that Biden's in charge. And like, how can there still be people that think that? I do wonder that a little bit.
I mean, I hear them on the Sunday shows, certainly, and it's
well, but the people on the Sunday shows are like, I mean, I guess the people around in Massachusetts, some of them are wealthier but like,
where I hear them? I hear them like some relatives I have who just are of a certain age who can't get over how hurt and offended they were during the Trump years and the George W. Bush years, are saying, he's getting things done, he's doing a good job, he's in the right place, this is tough, etc.
No one can do anything about inflation.
It's all Trump.
You think about the Infrastructure Reduction Act. That's going to create jobs.
Well, there you go.
The Infrastructure Reduction Act.
Jesus, what a mess. Here's Nancy Pelosi at the party when they passed the mic to her.
Many friends, what a thrill it is to be here to celebrate this life-changing legislation, making the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation Reduction Act, so beautifully named for all that it does.
Holy God!
Yes, this landmark law is cutting costs and inflation fighting and driving down costs for kitchen table items for America's working families.
You can tell them
Mr. President, many friends.
It is interesting, too, because they had like almost completely backed off from the Inflation Reduction Act branding and were calling it like totally other things and not calling it that at all because a bunch of cable news people kept asking them why all the experts kept saying it wasn't going to do anything to reduce inflation. And they leaned back into it because they thought they were going to have good inflation numbers today.
Right.
And so they thought they could take credit after telling us for months and months and months that they can't do anything at all to control inflation and all that stuff. They are back to calling it the Inflation Reduction Act because they thought the inflation was going to go down, and then it didn't.
Did somebody say Trump was a liar and was offended because he lied? Like, all
It
right.
is amazing too, and like
Hold
even
on, I
some
want
of
to
the
hear
news
this one more.
stations had
One
like
more hit,
okay,
one
go
more hit
ahead.
before you get to it of Pelosi.
Mr. President, thank you for unifying and inspiring a vision of a stronger, fairer, safer future for all, for our children. Your extraordinary leadership has made this glorious day possible. That's an applause line. Jill was applauding. And let us salute Leader Schumer.
I mean, it is interesting because even the news organizations had sort of prepped to report on good inflation news. And I'm sure the Biden people were telling them too, like, we're going to get good numbers. So, get your stories out now, start like prepare. I'm sure they were coordinating their response so that he could have his inflation reduction party and then do this. This is what Markets Insider was tweeting, which is part of Business Insider, was tweeting this morning ahead of the inflation report coming out. There's been lots of chatter that inflation has peaked, and the broad consensus seems to be that August data will show inflation cooled for the second month in a row. Markets expect headline CPI to see its first monthly decline since May of 2020, dragged down by declining gas prices. Not so much, though, actually. But even if CPI eased in August, it doesn't mean the Fed's going to steer clear of an outsized rate hike this week. Fed officials have signaled that there will still be, even if Tuesday's data is better than anticipated, that there'll still be a 75-point basis rate hike. And then they say that Brennan Playford said a hotter than expected report could bring more downward pressure, but that's not what he's expecting. What do you think today's inflation data will tell us about the next rate hike and the Fed's policy? I would say it's going to be a point, probably.
And all our distinguished guests, CEOs, advocates, activists, thank you for joining us. Historic laws like the infrastructure law. Republicans came across the aisle and they've worked with us, and we got it done. Over $1.2 billion to reshape this nation's infrastructure. The CHIPS and Science Act and the PACT Act.
My bank account feels reshaped. Thank you, Biden. Doing well here.
Proposed a plan requiring Congress to vote on the future of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid every 5 years. It's up for reauthorization. And I want to remind you, you paid for your Social Security. Every single paycheck from the time you're a kid, you paid for it. So every 5 years, Congress gets to vote, change, cut, reduce, or eliminate the entirety of Social Security. And it's not just Social Security. Everything as Senator Scott wants, everything in the federal budget to be up for 5 years. Nothing permanent. Nothing. That includes veterans benefits, Pell Grants, everything else. Look it up. It's hard to believe. I would think I'm exaggerating if I didn't look at it myself. And then along comes Senator Ron. Just have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. There's nothing we've ever set our mind to, nothing that we've not been able to accomplish.
Not reducing inflation.
Nothing beyond our capacity. And so just remember who we are. We stand together. There's nothing.
We stand together, says the guy who gave the Palpatine speech 10 days ago, saying that the one half of the country were Nazis.
Nothing beyond our capacity. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
He's not in good shape. I mean, the optics and the way that they handled it were just so incredible. They could have stuck with, by the way, that the president's not responsible for inflation and he can't do anything about it. They could have stuck with that narrative and gone into today and not have it be such a disaster PR-wise. But they decided they were going to make today National Inflation Reduction Day, and they didn't back down from it when faced with the actual inflation numbers, which was a choice that they literally made to do that.
Just that saying that this is kitchen table items, man, that is just a fatal thing to say. Oh, man. That is beautiful. Beautiful.
So back in my mom's Facebook group, did you see that I sent you this?
Is this the Melrose one? Mm-hmm. That's in your mom's Facebook? Oh, your mom, not your mother's.
Yeah.
Your mom's Facebook group of Melrose. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see. I'm make sure we got everything here for the Inflation Adjustment Act.
Okay.
Before we take it local to Melrose, I want to make sure that I've exhausted everything. Corinne Jean-Pierre says food is moderating. I've got a few Corinne Jean-Pierre's. Biden yells. Biden says it's a great day. Prices are down. Congressman Corinne, the Infrastructure Reduction Act. Pelosi, James Taylor. Hold on. Almost done. Wait for it. Hold on. As president. I'm almost there, Alice. Almost there. And all good. Go ahead.
So this weekend in Melrose was the
Victorian
Fair, which is
up. Hold on. Check 1, 2. Oh, you talk now.
Check 1, 2. This week in Melrose was the Victorian Fair on Sunday, and
which is this big street party. It's actually a great time in the middle of Melrose, which is a beautiful main street. And
they shut down the main street,
right.
And everybody walks around, and all the businesses and groups have booths.
Yes, it's really a great day. It's probably the best day of the year for Melrose.
So this mom posts, I just sent an email to the Melrose Police Department, Melrose City Council, and Chamber of Commerce stating my deep disappointment and sadness over the fact that the Melrose Police Department's only display at their booth at the Victorian Fair today was of 4 to 5 different weapon replicas, handguns, and rifles, and they were encouraging children to interact with them. And they were set up next to the Melrose Association Against Violence. It's Melrose Alliance Against Violence, but okay. Mm-hmm. And down 2 tables from Moms Demand Action. Why Moms Demand Action has a booth at the Melrose, Massachusetts Victorian Fair, I can't even begin.
What are Moms Demand Action on usually? What is their...
That's Shannon Watts' group. The Guns group.
Oh, from Connecticut.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, the lady's not from Connecticut. It's Shannon Watts, who's not involved.
I got in it with her, right?
Yeah, you got in a fight with her because that guy was telling you she was a Sandy Hook mom, and she's not. She has nothing to do with Sandy Hook at all. She's just a random person who decided she was going to get in on Sandy Hook and turn that into her career.
Oh, that was great. He tried to end me with you're yelling at a Sandy Hook
Do you
mom.
know who you're talking to?
That's great. Mm-hmm. What a dinkhead he was.
And they were down 2 tables from Moms Demand Action.
Oh, my God.
Honestly, I'm pretty livid over it. The first thing that I had to do at the fair today was tell my kids the guns were fake and they would not hurt them. They're riding high on anxiety after a back-to-school lockdown talk in class. Anyway, I'm happy. So what, they thought that the guns at the police table were going to kill them because somebody talked about lockdowns at school? Whatever. Anyway, I'm happy to share my email with you if you're interested, and if you feel grossed out to the max by this like I do, I encourage you to write to all the people expressing your feelings. This was not okay today. And another mom says, what on earth were they thinking? Whatever happened?
What a bunch of psychotics. I had to explain to my son
that the guns weren't real. They can't hurt you, honey. Look away.
He has heightened anxiety. It's like, yeah, because there's a psycho raising him in the house. I just don't feel like I sound like I'm rich enough. Does that mean? Okay.
Another mom writes, what on earth were they thinking? Whatever happened to the friendly neighborhood police officer keeping kids safe? What do you think exactly police officers use to keep kids safe from the bad guys? How do they think they do that?
Certainly not guns.
Another mom goes, what was the purpose of this display? Somebody goes, really poor judgment all around, including Giacomo's, which is a restaurant, for sponsoring that booth. We were so uncomfortable, and we tried our best for our 8-year-old to not see.
First of all, Giacomo's, which is there and in the North End, They are fantastic. They raise money for disadvantaged people all the time. It's an excellent restaurant. The owner is fantastic. They are pillars of the community. And, they're on the right side of stuff. And for these people to go after Giacomo's, how
because they
rancid.
sponsored the booth for the town police department.
Right.
I mean, come on. I saw that booth and was shocked that at an event so popular with children, interacting with guns was their chosen activity. My first thought was, well, this doesn't surprise me, and that makes me sad.
That makes me sad.
So
That's
see the
great.
bad police department. I'm so not surprised that the bad police department
That's great.
dared to show kids replica guns to explain them to them.
That is great.
So that they can also be educated and then be able to teach other people about it. Seeing characters like me and
Not about guns, though.
So you see,
we don't
this-
want them to
this
be
kid just
educated
said,
about guns.
This is more of that thing that
Mm-hmm.
my friend from the school in Winchester sent that we didn't get to yesterday. This is one little boy, a fourth grader, saying, seeing characters like me, and you know where he's going with this.
movies or books is in a way that probably sounds super self-absorbed, not really a big deal. For most of the stuff I watch, the protagonist is a nerd who likes art and magic, but for the racial part of the spectrum,
This is a fourth grader who somehow knows about the racial part of the spectrum.
That's normal.
He knows
fourth
that
grade
because
to talk
he's
that
got
way,
a
I
mom
think.
who's a psycho who probably complained about the guns at the Victorian Fair. These are all the same people.
and at least in America, most of the movies and shows, the main character is a white boy who's either really into sports or really nerdy. And I'm no different. I'm a white boy whose ancestors came to the original 13 colonies. I'm not saying that movies and other stuff.
I'm no different. Wait, you're not different? You don't have a different story than any other white boy? Nope, I'm no different. We're all the same. The whites are all the same. The white boys are all the same. We're no different.
Colored people and women aren't represented at all. And in the recent years, there's been an uprising and more representation
It rolls off the tongue for the kid. He so believes this stuff.
in media. All I'm saying is the voices of people who aren't white jocks need to be heard more. Racism is still a big problem.
The voices of people who aren't white jocks need to be heard more. Racism continues to be a problem. Yes, it does. And it was 3 seconds ago when you just mentioned the voices of kids who aren't white jocks need to be more. That is precisely racism. You're putting value on races based on skin color. You've hit it. You've nailed it. There's no dog whistle there. You've got the real thing.
Problem. And sadly, some people just don't understand that. So for how I'm represented in things, it's simply not a big deal. How I'm represented is no different from millions of other people. Whenever I watch TV, I always see white people in the higher roles,
This is a little girl now.
such as bosses, whereas the other minorities are always in the smaller roles, trying to fight for bigger roles.
White people.
And when the white people go home, they have a big family and a nice meals ready for them.
Freaking
But when the
whites.
minorities come home, they don't have as the stuff that other people have. And I feel like when I see this, I feel like this isn't always realistic.
Is that true, by the way?
Minorities don't have big meals in
When
families.
they depict minorities on TV,
Nope.
they don't have stuff?
They don't have, no. First of all, there's never been one. First of all, I can't even remember seeing a minority in a movie. And if there ever was one, nobody was ever the star of the movie. And the only movies stars there are white boys who are either nerdy or good at sports. That's it.
It's about time
And
we
they-
have a movie about something besides white jocks, because it seems
Yep.
like they're all about white jocks.
Absolutely. Now more than ever. You can never find a movie like out of comic books or anything. It's always about white jocks. And now, the whites go home and they have a big meal and happy families. And these are fourth graders saying this. I mean, this guy, my friend who sent this to me, he's got kids in that school. You will only find talk like this in extremely, extremely progressive, post-Marxist playgrounds like schools or in Klan meetings. Those are the two places. It's true. Is it not true?
I mean, it is true. It's really incredible the way how the left has gone full circle into total racism. It's an interesting phenomenon that I didn't know was going to turn out this way, but they really have gone fully into like a complete race-based thing. They would agree with a lot of Klansmen about things, I think. You know, and even a lot of the critical race theory stuff, like when they say that like standardized tests are racist, we're going to drop testing requirements. We're going to drop. I mean, what is it that you're trying to say exactly? I mean,
right.
I don't know what else to say about it, except it's distressing. I mean, I was at our kids' school today, too, for like the parent night where not like a parent teacher conference, but just they have all the parents come in for back to school and they kind of explain a little bit about the curriculum they're doing and whatever. And I don't have it on me anymore because I gave one of the kids my phones, but they talked about the 4 R's of 6th grade.
Oh God.
So do you think they were like reading and
no? I think
writing
respect
and
is one of them.
Yeah, respect. Resiliency,
Okay.
and I don't have my phone in front of me now. I did take a picture of it, but it was all like, and I texted you, I think, and I was like, when do they learn stuff? Because what they wanted the kids to come out of 6th grade with was like being kind to other people and feeling safe enough to take academic risks.
In the spirit of social and emotional learning, we want to make sure that we're uplifting them. We want to make sure that they're feeling good. It's like the only thing around them that's uncertain is effing you. You know, it's like a dog needs a leader, needs somebody who's standing tall, confident, and moving forward. When a dog doesn't see a leader, he's like, oh, crap, and gets nervous and anxious and is like, do I fill a void? I don't know. You can't have people who are having psychotic episodes who are unsure of themselves. These parents are broken. These teachers are broken, many of them. And God knows what psychotropic drugs they are taking that have hobbled them and put them in this place, this holding pattern where they're simply anxious and nervous constantly about people. I used to date a woman, Alice, and she was very destructive, and she was very destructive. She would lie, deceive, whatever, certainly cheat. Everything that she did, she was very destructive, not just to me, certainly to me, but to other people. I remember her mother saying to me, you don't understand, we'll call her Lisa. You don't understand, Lisa is really sensitive about hurting people's feelings. So, she's sensitive to that, so she tries to do whatever she can to avoid that. So Lisa then just lies to everybody about everything.
Yeah, it reminds me.
And all it is destruction. It's so Lisa's the most destructive person in the world because she's the most caring person in the world.
Of course. That's like I had a thing with another parent one time where a kid took my kid's ball that her teacher had given her that she was like all excited about. It was like her end of year parting gift from her teacher and was signed by the teacher with a note. Took my kid's ball, threw it in the woods and lost it. And my kid came to me crying, and the other kid lied about it to my face and said that they didn't do it. And I was furious with the other parent and said, your kid did this to my kid and lied about it. And she goes, well, he was just afraid he would get in trouble. It's kids that lie when they're afraid of adults, so he was obviously afraid of you. And I was like, yeah, your kid's afraid, and that's why he's a bully. Okay, that makes perfect sense. But it's like this, nice, super understanding parenting goes to such a point where the person actually turns into a sociopath.
Yes.
Because they've just been taught that all their feelings are valid and nobody else's are valid at any given time. It's always like me. So it's toxic. It's insane. We encourage it at every level. And now a lot of those people that have been raised like that have grown up and are teaching children. And that's where a lot of the libs of TikTok videos come from, where you have the teachers who are working out their own personal traumas and issues by wreaking havoc in a classroom of a bunch of third graders or whatever. So that's it. But
so now, first, certainly that last cut that we just heard with I'm just a white boy and white boy is this, and the whites get to have big meals when they go home to big families, and nobody else gets to have. said by 2 white kids who were brainwashed, 2 fourth graders. That is undoubtedly, and I know that I've sent it myself to people in the media in Massachusetts, that should be a news item. A big, beautiful news item. Because you have people indoctrinating using complete and total racial stereotypes. You have people who have completely marinated the kids in this, where the kids now speak it. And these are adults. This is adult language and adult ideology, adult philosophy that these kids are spouting, and it's racist. Which is not something I say a lot. But this is absolutely based on racial
by the
stereotypes.
definition.
Yes. And that should be a news story. Somebody should be raising hell over this. Somebody should be. I don't know if anybody is. Actually, you know what? I know who could.
I do too.
Yeah. Well, maybe send it his way.
But yeah,
do you know how to download that?
Yeah, it's an MP4.
Okay, but it's a big movie, right? I can't. My thing doesn't have enough stuff. So. Okay.
Yes, I know how to download it.
All right.
Great piece in the LA Times this week. Did you see this? Did I sent us this?
Is this stuff from yesterday?
The article is it's a couple days old, but I hadn't seen it, but I thought it was just fascinating. Which it's just more in the file of liberals having really good intentions and things not working out the way they planned somehow. It just always happens to them. There's no way to predict any of this. This is from the LA Times, so hardly some right-wing smear job. Mm-hmm. They write, California's cannabis initiative sold voters on the promise that a legal market would cripple the drug's outlaw trade. Instead, a Times investigation finds the law triggered a surge in illegal cannabis on a scale California has never before witnessed. Rogue cultivation centers like Mount Shasta Vista now engulf rural communities scattered across the state as far afield as the Mojave Desert, the steep mountains in the north coast, and the high desert and timberlands of the Sierra Nevada. Residents in these places describe living in fear next to heavily armed camps. Criminal enterprises operate with near impunity, leasing private land and rapidly building out complexes of as many as 100 greenhouses. Police are overwhelmed. Raids rip out plants and snare low-wage laborers, while those responsible, some operating with money from overseas, remain untouched by the law, hidden behind straw buyers and fake names on leases. Labor exploitation is common, and conditions are sometimes lethal. The Times documented more than a dozen deaths of growers and workers poisoned by carbon monoxide. The scale of the crisis is immense. A Times analysis of satellite imagery covering thousands of square miles of the state showed dramatic expansion in cannabis cultivation, regardless of whether those communities permitted commercial cultivation. The boom accompanied a switch in cultivation technique, from annual harvests of outdoor plots to large canopy-covered hoop houses that permit 3 to 5 harvests a year. So basically, because they made it legal, they put it in this weird gray zone where it's harder to go after the people who are doing these huge criminal enterprise grow operations that have nothing to do with California's cannabis law that's supposed to be like, oh, if you're just the friendly neighborhood hippie who wants to grow a plant for personal use in their yard, we're not going to prosecute you, has turned into huge criminal enterprises employing essentially slaves to work in these camps where they have a bunch of armed people as the state slips further into total chaos. And like I say, this is the LA Times reporting this. You have the San Francisco Chronicle talking about how the algae bloom in the San Francisco Bay is out of control because of all the fecal matter that's being pumped into the bay because their aging infrastructure, they have no, way to upgrade all their treatment plants and stuff. Talk about a failed state. It's just incredible, the stories coming out of California. I don't even know, and the guy who runs this place is preparing himself to be president of the whole country. What are people even thinking? California is such a mess. And I say this as somebody who really liked it more than I thought I was going to when I went there. But how do you ruin that? What a great state. And how it's just been destroyed. It's incredible what they've done to it. But yeah, and that's another win for the libertarians also. So congrats, guys. Well done. Decriminalization really helped out the state. It's working out really well. So do you look forward to President Gavin Newsom, honey?
It may happen. Some of my moles think it's going to happen.
He's definitely angling to do it. I mean, I would think. So when do you think Biden will make an announcement, if at all? Do you think just right after the midterms? Do you think he'll say he's done? Or do you think he'll wait?
Biden?
Yeah.
Midterms. He'll have to do it after the midterms. I just get it.
So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. But I think that this kind of economic news, and remember, this is now September. We have one more of these coming out before the election to tell us what September inflation was. And I don't think it's going to be better, even with a big rate hike that they're going to do.
Well, and also, isn't there another quarterly report coming out?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't necessarily follow when everything is, but this was not good news. This was a mess. And I mean, their handling of it is just so atrocious that I don't see how. Well, I mean, if Biden goes out there and reminds everybody that all these idiots voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, I don't know that it's going to help. What works?
I just sent the video to a friend of mine.
Did you see the little commercial the Biden White House came out with, too, about the inflation? I sent that to us also, I'm pretty sure. It's like a tweet from the White House.
Let me look, Allie. Hold on.
I think it's there because they're so impressed with what they've done to solve inflation now. They're all excited. It's their biggest day. But their handling of this has just been like pitch perfectly bad.
Let me see. Okay. Very visual, Alice.
My plan to fight inflation will lower your cost and lower the deficit. And here's the plan. Cut the cost of prescription drugs. Let's let Medicare negotiate the price of prescription drugs. Cut energy costs for families. Double America's clean energy production in solar, wind, and so much more. Lower the price of electric vehicles, saving another $80 a month that you're not going to have to pay at the pump. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in new taxes. Not a single penny. Now is the hour, our moment of responsibility. It is in this moment that our character of this generation is formed.
Worth a try.
That's one way to handle the inflation report.
All right, should we go to the...
I guess we should do some chat before we go.
All right, Alice, you are looking great.
Thanks, honey.
Still working. I'm still in deep negotiations with one David Robinette Cullinane, Alice, about something that we may be able to disclose later once we dot the I's, as we say in the biz. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, okay, nothing. Just I don't want to bother you. Let me know.
I'm ready for the show.
Ready to rejoin us.
I don't know if I'm allowed to react to that.
Hey, Tom and Alice.
Yes.
I seen somewhere in an article that if the Republicans get a majority, that Biden is going to use his veto pen, and that just made me laugh. That's like you're holding the country hostage. Like nothing's getting done. Well, bizarre, just threats. Bizarre.
It's fine. The move is to stop Biden, and he can't veto an impeachment. So
yeah, and everything's back from the Obama administration. The pen and the phone will be back. We already have the immigration crisis back. We already have Putin invading Ukraine.
He's already
back.
using the veto pen. He's already using the pen for college wealth redistribution to people who have doctorates.
Hey, Tom and Alice.
Yes.
I'm missing Vegas. I've been there 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite places to go. Nothing more fun than the shows, the gambling.
Ugh. I mean, that's the shows. I can't imagine.
New places to eat. I had a few places I like to eat when I'm in Vegas, like Shake Shack, Nacho Daddy,
both of those
Raising Cane's. There's this lobster roll place.
Ooh.
I I just like the glitz and glamour. It's all artificial and fake, but I still like it. Plus, they got 2 sports teams in there, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm
all right.
I go to Vegas.
Have you been?
Not really. I've been to the airport. Is there more than just the airport? Because that's where I've been. So
I have never been to Vegas either.
I went to the airport smoking room because I smoked back when I was there. So I'm not really a gambler. I definitely don't want to see any. I don't want to see the 2 shirtless guys with the lions or anything, and I don't want to see Britney or any. I don't want to see any shows. I don't want to sit in any seats and see any shows in Vegas. I'm done with that. I can walk and drink cocktails, and I like the idea of huge buffets full of sushi and lobster and stuff, and I've heard that happens. And I've heard it's kind of a cool place, but like I don't gamble. I don't think I'd be visiting the Mustang Ranch. You probably don't want me to go there, right, Els?
I don't even know what that is.
It's a brothel.
No, I don't want you to go
So
there.
no hookers, no drugs, no gambling.
And now you don't eat anymore.
No gambling, and I really don't need. I don't know what to do there anymore. I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I'd be interested if you've got some ideas. I'll go see the Pawn Stars guy. Oh, hold on, let me get back to you. Hang on.
Hello, Mr. Shattuck.
Okay, good day.
This is James Lynn, principal of McCall Middle School here in Winchester.
Oh, no.
I don't quite understand your criticism of our current curriculum, which reflects diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, it does.
Your ignorance is an obvious reflection of your white fragility and toxic masculinity. For your information, the Social Justice Committee is also updating our vocabulary syllabus to include many helpful words.
Do you think, first of all, before we go on, do you think there's any chance that Principal James Lynn of McCall Middle School, he's got to have a hyphenated name with his wife's name in there too, right? He's
Probably.
Yes.
For example,
he's probably a
the
doctor.
acronym BAME, B-A-M-E.
All right, I'm writing this down.
Stands for Black, Asian, and Minority Ethnics.
All right.
BAME stresses our need to be more mindful of our underserved and marginalized communities.
Good.
How about bropriate? This is when a cis man takes a woman's idea and claims it was his.
Oh, my goodness.
He then receives
First
the
of all,
accolades.
let's be honest. Has that ever happened? I have taken some of your talking points for my shows. There's no doubt about that.
For such an outstanding idea. I note how often you bropriate most of Alice's ideas.
That is true.
The last example I'll give you is one you probably have heard of, a trigger warning.
Uh-huh.
It's to be alerted to unconscious microaggressions you unknowingly inflict on your peers.
Yep, I'm finding
Mr.
that out.
Shattuck, it's about time you get educated. Our society has evolved to a point where all of Winchester embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yep.
Not just the affluent side of town, where I happen to live. Thank you.
The poor side where I lived as well. That's right. But when I used to be a sachem, and now we're just the Winchester football team. Thank goodness. Everybody's served because of that.
Go to parent-teacher night on the way back.
Oh, but you can't bring a kid.
Yeah, you can.
You can?
That's from our show. They
Is
slowed
this
it
you
down.
and I wasted?
Yeah, I guess so.
Man, we got to slow down a little bit, Alice. We were doing well there for a while.
What, they're gonna turn me away?
Oh, I like that, Alice. I'm sorry. This is like fairly
I
hot.
don't love it.
Oh, I love that. Is not inaccurate. Let me tell you that.
It's inaccurate.
Jesus. I guess not.
Oh my goodness, this is way too drunk, Alice. I like this
Not
young
like
lady.
that.
Remember, I had to carry you back from the bar in Charlestown when you lit my coat on fire. That was you that night. Very cute, though.
I mean, at some point, whatever. It's fine. Maybe we'll all go to karate and you can drop me off at parent-teacher night and wait outside.
We really need to see somebody, Alice. I didn't realize now it's come to me. This is a good intervention.
If you're scared that I'll bring a kid to parent-teacher
Oh,
night,
God. I'm sorry. I love intoxicated Alice. I love this person.
That's not really
what do they
intoxicated.
want
Alice.
people to do?
Oh, you annoying, trunking
Don't get me started on the school district.
That's great. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Certainly now it's making me reflect.
So Lizzo's like proud of being fat and
Yes.
everything. But there's other people who have weight issues understand that it's life and death. You have to lose weight if you want to live a long life.
They say that.
Like, you can't live a great life with high blood pressure and diabetes and heart problems. I recently had a doctor tell me that I was overweight and I needed to lose weight or I was going to die. He was upset. He was very upset. With me. And through that process, I've lost almost 30 pounds. So
nice.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, I had a fatty liver, so
yeah,
I'm feeling much better now.
I can't imagine what that would be.
I can't believe people praise Lizzo for being fat and then she praises herself. Yeah, she's gonna lose a foot to diabetes if she don't watch out.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that'll be beautiful too.
Yeah, I mean, talk about how toxic is that?
Big controversy, by the way, at Jezebel, which is like, I thought they were gonna go away when Peter Thiel attacked Gawker, but they didn't. They're still here somehow. I don't know why, but anyway, they're mad because did you follow the whole thing with the Broadway show of Funny Girl? You know how there's like the Barbara Streisand movie, and it's like a Broadway show. So Beanie Feldstein was in it, who's the girl who played Monica in the Monica Lewinsky thing we watched.
Oh yeah.
But she got replaced by this woman who was in Glee, Leah Michele. And Jezebel noticed that Leah Michelle's costumes were a lot skimpier than Beanie Feldstein's costumes were. So they feel that the Funny Girl people were not sufficiently celebratory enough of Beanie Feldstein's larger figure than of Leah Michelle's more Hollywood figure. So they feel that that there was discrimination in the costume department in Broadway.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, thank you all for listening and coming to our inflation reduction party. It's been fun. We'll be back again.
Go to parent-teacher night on the way back.
Oh, yeah.
Stop it.
Jesus.
Don't do that.
I mean, at some point, whatever, it's fine. Maybe.
Oh,
I'm not really
great.
Like that, though. That's
yes,
not
you
true.
are. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for that.